ready? Okay. So first coming out to the stage, we have Brugel, who plays Rita. Next we have Chang, who plays Tuello. Madeline, Brewer, who plays Janine. Tuchman, executive producer and co-showrunner. Chang, executive producer and co-showrunner. And our star, Elisabeth, executive producer, director, and the woman behind Osborne. But how did y'all feel? Okay, this is a Wednesday night. It's gonna be a long one, so we'll be here, okay? We're gonna all be family. How y'all feeling on the stage? Okay, I know. Did we all shed tears?
Yes.
Episode 9 was, I screamed. Okay? Literally. Right, we can take a seat. But no.
Do they say 10-1 in the regular world? You say 10-1 on set when someone's going to the bathroom. She's 10-1 right now.
As you guys may notice, there is an empty seat here tonight because we are saving it for a very, very special guest. She is a brilliant actress, and I am very, very lucky to call her my friend. And we are so lucky to have her here tonight, Alexis Bledel.
Alright, y'all. It's been an exciting season. It's the last one. We gotta get into all of it. Elisabeth, this first question is for you. I know. Take a beat. But after watching the finale, let's start with how the series ends, with June walking through the Waterford's home and beginning to her story. Talk to us about the decision to end the series this way, and what was it like for you to shoot those final moments, both as an actress and as the episode's director?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't my decision. I didn't write the episode. Bruce Miller did, who unfortunately, I don't know if he's here.
No,
He didn't. Yeah, unfortunately, he didn't make it. But he wrote this beautiful episode, and I knew about the ending for a while though. So it was honestly kind of a very meta experience filming it because, you know, I was walking back into that set for the first time in a long time. I had spent a lot of time there, and so it wasn't a lot of acting required. It definitely just I felt all the things that sort of June was feeling. I think the thing I remember was in the shooting of it, it was a really beautiful experience because we had a closed set just to keep it really nice and calm. And our crew, it was one of the most beautiful, inspiring things to watch because every single member of this crew took it upon themselves this was going to be the best scene they had ever done. And everything had to be perfect. And you know, the dolly track had to be perfect, and the lighting had to be perfect, and the walls and the set deck and everything was just, and everybody was very quiet and very just wanting to do their absolute best work for this scene. And it was a really moving thing to witness. All these artisans really giving their best because it meant something to them.
Yeah, absolutely. This next question is for Eric and Yahlin. Okay, talking about giving excellence. You guys did that and then some. Okay, give it up for them. No, seriously. Y'all did all right so far this season. Okay, round of applause. Keep it coming. Y'all did that. I imagine that there's an added pressure because this is how the show is ending, and you want to satisfy both the story as well as the fans. What were the conversations like with Elisabeth, Bruce, the EPs, department heads, to know that you were getting it right along the way?
Well, first, thank you for coming out on a Wednesday night. It's amazing to see the episodes on a big screen with an audience, and there are laughs in The Handmaid's Tale. Who knew? We just wanted to tell an honest story this season. We wanted to really tell an authentic story. Not everything is wrapped up in a bow, but we wanted to make sure that each of these amazing actors and the ones who are not quite on the stage yet had essential, vital things to do. We have the most magnificent ensemble. So we just wanted to put together a puzzle that made sense and was moving and memorable, because you guys have been such loyal and incredible fans for such a long time. We appreciate that very much.
Yeah, it's really amazing how passionate people are about the show. It's been such a privilege. I feel so lucky. I'm like pinching myself still that I get to work on this. And I have to say that this has been the easiest job I've ever had in my life, because there are all these amazing, from Lizzie to everyone on the stage and everyone in our crew. It is the easiest thing to write for these people, because we know that every step of the way, and with our crew too, that the scripts are going to get elevated and they're going to get better, and it's been the most artistic and creative experience I've had, and it's very sad to see it end.
Absolutely. OT, this next one's for you. Listen, Luke was not playing around this season, okay? He wasn't waiting to make decisions. He got very active with the Mayday, and he was like, listen, June, I know you got some things to say, but I'll the shots this time around. What was it like to see this character, as a turning point for you as an actor, and was it a turning point for the character for you?
Well, it's testament really to our wonderful writers here that it's very tempting to keep one character basically doing the same thing over and over again. And it makes so many brave decisions this season where characters could really be changed, be influenced, be affected by what's going on, and getting a chance for Luke. Because, people are stopping in the streets saying, why don't you just go get Anna back? I'm sorry, I talk the best I can. English, Anyway, so to get an opportunity to kind of, and of course, we don't get Hannah back in the end, which is what we really want, which is heartbreaking, but getting the opportunity to really go for it and try and push Luke's boundaries was really exciting this season.
Yeah.
Can I say something really quickly about OT? We were doing a scene early on. Lizzie, I think, was it episode 2? You were directing it, and it was OT who had just come out of prison, and Samira and I are waiting for him there. And it was a moment where OT was trying to get this right. This is the moment where he says, I'm going to fight. You know what happens to my daughter? You know what they do to my daughter in Gilead? And that moment, watching his vulnerability, Samira and I were like, oh, that's right. We're still making The Handmaid's Tale. The caliber is so high, and we have to step up. And that's just a testament to what he knew from what the writers created and trusted him.
Coming right back to you though, Sam. Mark has navigated the middle ground throughout the entire show, between enemy lines. What was it like for you, and what do you feel like he ultimately stands for? Is it redemption? Is there something that he's fighting for, or is there something that we don't know anything about?
That's a good question. I think Mark is trying to hold space for a lot of people dealing with pain. And with every story like this, when somebody has gone through the atrocities that the women in this story have gone through, they need a person there to hold space and be there for them. And I think he's one of those people. I think they all try to support each other in some way. And the other part of Mark, I think, is this belief in freedom, belief that we are, as much as we shit all over our country, and it's like Winston Churchill once said, democracy is the worst form of government except for all the other ones. And we have a lot of flaws, but I still believe that being in a free country means something. Our country has the capacity for good if we align and fight for what's right.
Rita has had relationships with both Janine and Serena, two women who represent polar opposites of her past. How did you approach her emotional boundaries with each of them in this
Because it's the last season and the last time we're going to do this. So, and I can't get fired. So I'm a black woman. I'm a black woman. And what I'm saying to the non-black women and the non-black men is that complex emotional boundaries is sort of what I was, it's a birthright, and navigating those. And I think the thing that this show gave to me was not just playing those tropes. And so I could see sort of a reference to June and a reference to Serena. Serena was my savior, June was my friend, but still there's sort of deference to both of them. And the thing that the writers, particularly these showrunners, have done for me this season was taking me out of that deference and finding my voice, which was fucking kick-ass. But how I navigated those relationships was just, you're not supposed to, as an actor, I guess, for some reason, bring in your own life and your own trauma and your own shit. But I brought it into both of these relationships in finding like June to be someone that I bowed down to because I needed her to save me, and Serena, I needed her to save me, but ultimately realizing I just needed me to save me.
Okay. Hello. Madeline, you've spoken about Janine before being born of her trauma. She's hope, she's love, she's courage, she's humor. How did you balance that optimism with the darker realities that she faces this season?
It's been 9 years of not really being entirely sure whether I would make it past the next episode. Until I read it and thought, oh gosh, there she goes again. To something that OT said, and I think is once again such a testament to our writers, is they have allowed Janine to not be one thing. And in the earlier seasons, especially in seasons 1 and 2, Janine's escapism and that personality, that kind of floating, crazy thing, was a survival mechanism. And she was allowed to be that. And then when that didn't really serve her anymore, our writers allowed her to grow and allowed her to become a different kind of survivor right up until the very end. And I love how she was able to keep that optimism that is so Janine, and then bring in parts of June, because how could she not have been with this woman for years and learned from her? And I think that Janine's spirit is that of an optimist and not a hopeless, like romantic and a hopeless optimist, and she never loses that, and that is kind of like the thesis statement for me for Janine, is that it's really don't let the bastards grind you down, and they never do. They can't take that hopeless optimism away from her.
The last time that we saw Emily at the end of season 4, she was struggling to acclimate to life in Canada, and ultimately decides to return to Gilead and fight for resistance. What do you think drove Emily to continue in her pursuit for the freedom for the women of Gilead?
Well, when she arrived in Canada and reunited with her family, She was still processing so much emotion. Her trauma was very fresh. She went through so much in Gilead, and it's similar to what Maddie said about, almost not being able to believe that she's still standing, and then something else happened to her. So when she settles, I think she still has a lot of underlying rage and unprocessed emotions to work through, but she kind of gets drawn back into Gilead instead of kind of finding a way to work through it in Canada. I think she wants to go back and finish what she started.
Yeah. And you guys do go back to where you started. How was it like for y'all to go back to, where you guys were handmaids, or your characters were handmaids? How was it like revisiting that set, the Waterford home? What was that day like?
Well, I love the opportunity to offer a satisfying conclusion to Emily's storyline, because it's such a beautifully written role from the pilot. And, the fact that the finale brings us full circle and has June and Emily walking together in freedom felt so meaningful, and seemed to inform so much about each of their journeys, as well as the way they were intertwined from the beginning. So being back on set in the context of freedom felt very different. I almost expected to have the bonnet on again and have to sort of peek around. And I was like, no, it's a totally different feeling. It's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, when I heard the idea that Emily could come back in the finale, I said, okay, the problem is now that you've told me that, we have to do it. Because it was so perfect, and it felt like this an essential piece of the show, not just June's journey, but my first scene. My first scene on day 0 was with OT and our Jordan and Hannah at the aquarium, but our first official day 1 was with Alexis. And she's why June became who she is. She was the first Mayday resistance fighter that June met, and was her inspiration. So it just, once I heard that, I was just basically stressed about it for the next year and a half, whether or not we were actually going to be able to get her to come back, and then keep it a secret for so long, which was also another challenge. So it meant so much to me personally, as a friend, and Alexis, I hope, knows that. And it also just meant, I think, so much to us as a show. She was such a huge part of the show for us. So.
Yahlin and Eric, talk to us about episode 9, honey. Oh my goodness. Which, Eric, you wrote, and where much of the action comes to a head. There were some shocking and very heartbreaking moments. What were the conversations that you had with one another, with Bruce, with Elisabeth, for the penultimate episode?
Well, I got very lucky because those story elements landed in that episode. So it was the culmination of a lot of the emotional arcs for the characters, in addition to those big set pieces. And I would like to say, since you guys have just seen it, the episode would not be what it is without the brilliant direction of Elisabeth Moss. You heard us pitch that episode to the suits, to Hulu and MGM. And I think when she heard the content of that episode, she raised her hand and said, I know I'm directing the finale, but I think I'd like to direct that one as well. And of course, that was the best news for me, because Lizzie's directed one of my other episodes, and it's never in better hands than Lizzie's hands. I mean, she invests so much passion and creativity and imagination. We're in the Directors Guild, so I'm talking about the director. But for me as a writer, it was really thrilling, because I had all of the cast having, I think, great moments and scenes together. It was a combination of very intimate two-handers with these big kind of spectacle scenes. And I'm so glad you guys cheered when the planes went overhead.
I cried. Just a little, not for work. But Yahlin, would you like to add to that?
I mean, episode 9 is just this incredible, awesome epic.
By the way, Yahlin wrote episode 8, so she's no slouch.
But, I do feel like by the time we were coming towards the end of the season, we were really just not leaving anything on the table. And we were making movies by the end. And just, the brilliance of Lydia's directing and the producing that we were actually able to do it, to make these movies. What I love so much about 9 is that there are these massive, action set pieces and the revolution, the thing that we've been waiting for this whole time, along with these beautifully, just gorgeously written scenes like the Wharton June scene and the Serena June scene, and the stuff that as a writer you just, those two-handers are so much fun. And so I don't know, I'm with episode 9 I really got to sort of just sit back and watch masters at work, and I love that.
I gotta say, I've obviously seen the episode a lot, and was there. But watching it like that on the big screen, I'm not looking at you, Eric, when I say this, but it just was so incredibly grateful that I, as an actor and director, got to be at the helm and be in those scenes and say some of those lines and do some of those scenes in those moments. I just felt, even after it has been quite a long time since we made it, I just felt so incredibly, incredibly grateful, and I was able to just be a part of it. So thank you very much for letting me do that.
Can't get away from it. Last question is for you, Elisabeth. In the first episode of the season, June tells Serena's crying, mommy's always come back. And then the last episode, the flashback, June says the same thing to Hannah, mommy's always come back. Talk to me about why that was, what was the purpose behind having that open and close the season? And what does that say about the future of Handmaid's Tale? Is there a message behind it for
Yes, definitely. The message I think is very obvious, of course. Honestly, it's kind of one of the benefits of being able to know the whole season before you start. So we had pretty much all of the scripts before we began. So I knew about this mommy's always come back moment, the flashback that was going to happen in the finale. So I took a chance and I ad-libbed that line in episode 1, just in case we needed it, if that finale flashback ended up being in the show. And it did, because I thought that would be a really nice bookend, because for me, if there's a way to sum up what the whole series is about, and what June's whole journey is about, it's those words. It's just that. It's as simple as that. Mommy's always come back. And another thing that Sherry's character says in the show about how this story is for the people that their children don't come home, and they won't ever stop looking for them, and won't ever stop believing in them and loving them. That to me was another really, really important part of this episode, and those two things are for me what the show's about.
Absolutely. Well, that's all I have for Team Mayday, okay?
Real quick, can I see quickly, how many people watched this last episode for the first time just now? Okay, just real quick. My son and I listen to music. We play it all the time on his way to school, and he was really looking forward to an album that came out recently. And I said to him when it landed, I said, "Hey, buddy, just remember, this album right now, it's yours. And you can find out about what the world thinks about it later on. But right now, it was built for you, so just savor it." And I know that these creators on this show, whatever you feel about the show, just let it be yours, because that's what we did. We tried to create something for the fans of our show that they could sit with, because it was so personal and meaningful to them, just as it is to us. So.
Oh, shit. JK! saying, wasn't like Aunt Dowd was supposed to be here, so.
That's what I was thinking too.
Yeah,
I was oh, so now I get it. But now people are struggling because they want the food. So,
Yeah, I know.
It's just, probably want the other panel.
Yeah.
Right, okay, shout out your favorite character.
And Lydia. Lawrence. Actually, Emily. I was so excited she came back.
That was perfect.
I was so happy. I cried so hard.
What was it like working with Bruce along the way? He's also going to be working, you guys will be working together on The Testament. So how was it like, as you closed out this show?
I got really, really lucky. I've done a few shows, and I've had some great people at the helm that I've had really good experiences working with. And after this show, I'm spoiled forever between Bruce and then Eric and Yahlin, who are so incredibly collaborative and just give me so much trust and a voice, and recognizing that, very early on, Bruce and Warren Littlefield, the brilliant Warren Littlefield, who they were the original executive producers that I worked with the most, and they recognized that a female voice was really necessary in that position to the show, and they gave me a seat at the table when they honestly didn't have to. And I'll always be forever grateful to the both of them for that.
Time to bring out Team Gillian! Yeah, I know. So we got to start with you, number one on the call sheet, baby. How have you evolved as a director and actress throughout the 6 seasons of The Handmaid's Tale? What has your experience been like working with these artists as a director, executive producer versus an actress on the series?
I mean, again, I have been so incredibly fortunate to work with these actors. I mean, it's like having just a garage full of your finest cars. It's like, how do you, it's really hard to mess up with them, because they're just, I was saying this earlier, the biggest lesson I learned, and the first lesson I learned when I first started directing in season 4, was that you can do all of the fancy stuff, you can have all the bells and whistles, and it's super fun, and I love all that stuff, and I love cinematography, but all that really matters is that actor's performance. And you put them in front of the camera, and that's all you actually need. And I remember it very clearly working on a scene with Dowd in episode 3 of season 4, my first episode, and just going, that's it. That's all I need is her performance. And so I've been so lucky and to have that. How I've grown as a director. Gosh, I don't know. It probably was better answered by someone else.
Yeah, I can't wait to answer that question.
Yeah. Do you have an answer?
Well, I don't want to interrupt.
No, please. Please interrupt, please.
You want to find director? She's sitting right there. And I'll tell you what else. She knows all of us, all of our characters, like she knows herself. And to be on a set with someone who knows that and shares that and has the patience of Job, she's sitting right there. She's magnificent.
Warren, when you first signed, go ahead. Warren, when you first signed on to this adaptation of The Handmaid's Tale from Margaret Atwood's novel, what was your primary goal in bringing the story to life on screen? Did your vision evolve at any point throughout the seasons?
I think when I read Bruce Miller's words, I felt that it was such a powerful message of rebellion, of fighting a very feminist story, so interesting that Bruce did the adaptation. And yet he had such a deep understanding of the material and had lived with it for so long. And I think, and Lizzie and I were kind of united in the moment in a 2-hour phone call and kind of said, well, I'll do it if you do it. And I think Lizzie's words were, I think we have to. And we wanted to honor Margaret's vision through Bruce's interpretation, because we thought, and again, this was developed in the Obama years, we could see the far right on the horizon throughout the world. But we love the message, echoed so much in this final season, don't give up the fight. And we just wanted to do justice to what was on the page.
Yeah, absolutely. Yvonne, you listen. Okay. She acts down, but baby, that first episode and episode 8, like stellar standout performances. Like, oh my goodness. In the pro-Gilead speech that's in episode 1, where you're like preaching, like, I mean, God bless America, like, I mean, going in, you know, very much promoting Gilead. But then later in the season, you know, in episode 8, when Wharton brings out the handmaid, you have this anti-handmaid, you know, speech where you have the same passion and vigor with both performances, but from different perspectives. Talk to me about Serena's transformation throughout the show, and was this like a big, you know, 360 for her completely, or 180?
Yeah, oh God, it's always really interesting to talk about Serena, because it's just so difficult. I think so much of her journey has to do with June's belief in Serena, that she can ultimately change, and that never wavered. And June presents to Serena, June is the consequence of Serena's actions, and I think that's what allows her to evolve. If she didn't have someone in her life forcing her to see what she has done, I don't think she would have got there. I think the baby, her own biological child, helps as well, because as any parent understands, as soon as you have a child, the stakes become a lot higher and your life changes. So that indeed helps. But ultimately, I still feel that she, even though she has these redeemable moments, I still feel that they are somewhat self-serving, and she cannot ultimately separate herself. I know Lizzie thinks a bit better of Serena than I do. But I do think that ultimately these are still self-serving decisions in a lot of ways. I mean, I could hang on about this forever, but yeah, that's the highlights.
But I think better of Serena because of what you bring to her in your performance is the thing, and it's there on the page, but it's what you bring as humanity, the depth and vulnerability and complexity that you as an actress bring to her. I don't think in anyone else's hands it would be anywhere near the same or anywhere near as beautiful and moving.
And here he came. This next question is for Anne. Over the course of The Handmaid's Tale, we see Aunt Lydia's character go through significant development, and we see her finally start to question her loyalty to Gilead. Finally, okay? And as the series comes to a close, what has it been like for you to explore her vulnerabilities and struggles with power?
I'm sorry, sweetheart, the last part again?
What was it like for you to explore her vulnerabilities and struggles with power?
Oh, man, I'm thinking of episode 8. To come to terms with what you have done with your life, and to come to terms with what you thought you believed to be right and true, and to realize that in fact you were not right. You were cruel, and you watched rapes and allowed them to continue, and I did this, I did this, I did this. I mean, to come to the point where she is looking at herself in the mirror and seeing the truth, and then be able to let go, I thought was very powerful. I was very proud of her personally for being able to do that. I'm not answering that very well, I'm sorry. And then when I saw her face at the end of this episode 10, and it was all over her face, I mean, I speak of her so she's not me. Just what she realized she had to do. She had to, first of all, let go of Janine, and it's her love of Janine that broke the wall down around her and crumbled the wall around her. And she had to not only let go of Janine, but rescue Janine and give her back what belonged to her. Very brave things to do, and I could see the anguish in her face and the exhaustion of having to go back and continue to know more about herself, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll know more about Aunt Lydia and the Testaments.
What's that?
I said we'll know more about Aunt Lydia and the Testaments.
Yes, maybe. I'll see. I've been told to say that.
Forever, Naomi has long been a devout Gilead member, but she finally turned a new leaf in episode 10 by releasing Janine's daughter. What does that scene tell us about Naomi's development over the seasons, and how do you interpret her place in Gilead moving forward?
Well, I think there's no scene in episode 10 without looking at the scene in episode 9 where Lawrence is sending her off and asks her to read the book. Sorry, that scene makes me so emotional. I think of Bradley in the airplane with his hand over his heart. So I think there's no 10 without 9, really. There's no evolution of Naomi without that scene. And after we filmed the scene in episode 9, or after I read it, I texted Eric Tuchman and I said, thank you so much for finally giving Naomi some humanity. Because, you know, in Gilead, we're in outfits and we're all sort of being devout. And I think that what the writers have done such a great job is, you know, over the course of 6 seasons, it's given everybody the time to sort of chip away at who these people really are in their souls and in their hearts. And we get glimpses of it, and as more has been taken away from them, you get to see more of it. And so I think by 10, you know, I think Naomi is tired, and I think that there's a glimmer of Naomi that loves Janine. You know, there's a part you cannot not love Madeline Brewer, and you cannot not love Janine. And I think that she knows, I'm going to call her Charlotte, will be safe with Janine, and she makes the maternal choice. And I think that's what all of episode 10 to me is about. It's about, you know, after I read it, I felt like it was maternal. I felt like I had read something that made me feel like I was a little kid in the playground, and I'd fallen and scraped my knee, and my mom came over, she picked me up, and she dusted off my knee, and she said, get back out there. Like, that's the energy to me that I felt from 10, and, you know, I think Naomi had a little to do with that.
Could I just say one more thing about Janine, since she's mine? Sorry, but realizing that, well, you know, she does. I try to convince her, you know, her wedding's coming up. I have a lot of questions for her. Okay, now what was I going to say? Oh, who does Janine belong to? For Lydia to think of the question, who does Janine belong to? She doesn't belong to me. I'm not her mother. She belongs to herself. And who does that child belong to? That child belongs to Janine. And coming to terms with that truth, I think, was the most powerful thing Lydia's ever likely to go through in her life. And I'm grateful for it.
That makes sense.
Josh, as a new addition to the world of Gilead, your character reveals some truths this season that completely betray the audience and take you and Serena's stories to unexpected places. What was it like reading these scripts for the first time, and how did you feel stepping into the role, as well as also working with Elizabeth?
Hi everyone. I'll say this before I answer the full question, just I think this is for your consideration. Just my own comments about Miss Elizabeth Moss as a director, who I think it's extraordinary what she was able to do. I mean, to produce, to direct, to star in this material, and be that invested, and be there for your actors. I mean, I always feel actors make the best directors. It's not always the case, but I do think it's the case most of the time. And it's about taste. It's about like creating a sense of safety, that you can take risks, that you can fall on your face, and that's going to be okay. And that encourages you to try and reach and push yourself. And I can't speak enough about the talent that this woman is. And you know, me coming into this journey is not something that I would have done had I not probably worked with Lizzie already, because I saw how invested she is in the material as a producer on the other show that we did. And so I felt that, but I also was very nervous just coming into a show of this caliber with this incredible cast of actors and crew and writers. But I think I was welcomed with open arms by everyone, and really felt like it was my duty to just sort of fit into the ensemble, you know, play this character and how he serves the narratives to finish this story. But it was definitely daunting just to step in, but she was right. Everybody was really great, and I felt very welcome right away.
Yeah. What did you think about Wharton when you first read him? I mean, he's a character that we don't see until.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, look, I mean, he's the heavy, he's the villain of it, but I think what was interesting for me when I read it, and Lizzie and I had a really long conversation, and I thought it was all about the shadow, you know, it was just really interesting to explore a character who's so inherently, you know, he's obviously a fundamentalist, a true believer to his core, but and incredibly capable of incredible cruelty, but also really kind, which makes that cruelty even stand out more. And I thought it was really interesting, the juxtaposition of someone who wants to lead, who has these very strong values, but also has a hole inside of him of really wanting a family. And I thought that was really interesting to play both of those things at the same time. It was just fun. It made it more complex for me, but yeah, I don't know. That's all I got.
Josh, if I may say, he really made this season better for us. He asked questions. It's what he does. I know from working with him a couple of times. I mean, he really minds the material. We've talked for 90 minutes. I think before he even said yes to doing it, and he asked questions. He wanted it to be this, and he wanted it to not be this, and he was incredibly brave and not shying away from this man being very evil, and at the same time being in love. And he brought that element to it, which was, I think he pushed us as producers to elevate that character with these incredibly intelligent sort of, and really trying to get at the truth of something. And I'm so grateful for him, not only for his performance, but for coming in and really demanding of us that we do the best work that we could with that character. He made it better. Good job.
Back to Elizabeth. What can you tell us about the Testaments? We gotta know. We gotta know. And listen.
You've already heard. I don't know anything.
I'll jump in a little bit. A little teaser. 4 years after the end of Handmaid's Tale.
Okay.
And we're in a world that is Virginia, Maryland, away from the Boston area. And this is from the point of view of the young women coming of age in Lydia's school. This all comes from the vision of Margaret Atwood, of course, based upon her 2019 book written almost 35 years after The Handmaid's Tale. And these young women have never known a world other than Gilead. So, and that world is bright and beautiful and seductive, and yet it's still Gilead. And so that's the realization. And Lydia has started this school to try and, I think, reform from within, rather than blow up Gilead. She is an educator, and she's trying to raise her young girls in a way that has them live a better life, but it's also Gilead. And so it's a really interesting transition to see where Lydia goes, and also see a new world through all these young eyes.
I watched the camera test, and I cried. It made me cry because there was something so moving about seeing these beautiful young women, these really vibrant, smart, funny, great girls in this world of Gilead. And there was something so striking and moving about it. And I thought, oh, that's the show. That's the Testaments. That's where it is, right there. So I think it's going to be, it's definitely going to be something I think that is going to be something good to watch. But it was moving seeing that, and that's when I think I sort of discovered really what the show is.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, please give this panel a round of applause.